Welcome to Clarity of Concept UPSC channel. In this video series, we will discuss and analyze the economic survey and budget of this year for UPSC Prelims and Mains 2025. The economic survey was released on January 31st, 2025 by the Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman in Parliament. The survey contains 13 chapters. We will discuss each of these 13 chapters one by one in a detailed manner. We will also cover the relevant basics explanation whenever a complex economics word or concept appears. Before taking each of these 13 chapters, it is important to understand the holistic picture of survey, what it tells overall and broad overview. In this video, we will see who prepares survey and what all it contains. We will briefly see what each of the chapter contains. We will also study highlights of the Economic Survey 2024-2025 in this video. We will use simple English so that people from Hindi medium can also catch up. Let us start with basics of Economic Survey. Let us see who prepares it. The Economic Survey of India is an annual document prepared by the Economic Division of the Department of Economic Affairs under the guidance of the Chief Economic Advisor. For the 24-25 edition, the survey was authored by Chief Economic Advisor V. Ananta Nageshwaran and his team. The survey was presented in Parliament by Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman on January 31st, 2025, one day before Union Budget. This comprehensive survey report reviews the Indian economy's performance over the past fiscal year, that is 2024-2025, and provides an outlook for the upcoming fiscal year, that is 2025-2026. It analyzes key economic indicators, sectoral developments, and suggests policy measures to foster economic growth. The name of the first chapter is State of the Economy, Getting Back into the Fast Lane. This chapter outlines India's economic performance, how India is growing despite global challenges, and what is driving investment, consumption, and inflation trends. The survey of this year presents a confident picture of India's steady and resilient economic growth, with GDP expected to grow at 6.4% in 2024-2025, and it is projected between 6.3% and 6.8% for 2025 and 2026. There are a lot of global uncertainties, geopolitical risks, and slowing trade in the world. But India has sustained a strong domestic demand, particularly in agriculture and services sector. The monsoon from June 2023 to September 2023 was very good. Hence, it boosted the Kharif crop. This record Kharif production has boosted rural incomes. And the services sector remains the fastest growing at 7.2%. But manufacturing sector has struggled a little bit. That is because of weak external demand. The survey says local demand in India is very good, but the external demand is very less. It has caused the sluggish growth of manufacturing sector. The survey also suggests investment activity remains positive, supported by public infrastructure projects. According to the survey, inflation has moderated to 4.9%, down from 5.4%, easing pressure on household budgets. The survey highlights that private consumption is picking up. It also says financial markets are stable and foreign exchange reserves remain strong. Going forward, structural reforms and deregulation will be key in sustaining this growth momentum. This first chapter gives a broad overview. There are so many terminologies that we encountered, but we will explain all of that in future videos. The second chapter's title is Monetary and Financial Sector Developments, the Cart and the Horse. It explains how India's banking and financial system is performing, how the RBI is managing interest rates and inflation, and how credit growth and stock markets are shaping up. The survey highlights strength of India's banking and financial sector, ensuring the smooth flow of credit and investment. The RBI has kept repo rate steady at 6.5%, maintaining a balance between growth and inflation control. A reduction in the cash reserve ratio has injected 1.16 lakh crore of liquidity into the system. The banking sector remains strong and well capitalized, and NPA has also fallen. It has fallen to a 12-year low of 2.6%. That indicates a improved financial health. The survey also says stock markets have surged to new highs. This is because of increased retail and institutional participation. Financial inclusion is expanding, and India is set to become the fastest growing insurance market among G20 nations. But this chapter also highlights various challenges. One of them is excessive financialization. That means more people are putting money into stock markets, options, derivatives into these sectors which are secondary market. These things are good. They provide you actually liquidity, but they themselves do not produce anything. Investment into stock market is not same as investment into manufacturing, infrastructure or in agriculture. If people invest in these primary sectors such as infrastructure, agriculture, or manufacturing, this is more good for the economy. So, only after this, the secondary markets such as share markets, options, and these things should develop. But survey cautions more and more people are focusing on the secondary system only. This might be like putting the cart in front of the horse. For cart to go forward, horse should be placed in front and the cart should be pulled by the horse. But if you put the cart in front and horse at the back, things cannot work. So more investment is needed in agriculture, manufacturing and infrastructure rather than share market and secondary markets. The survey warns about this excessive financialization. We will explain this in detail when we take up each chapter in detail. Next is third chapter. It has a title External Sector Getting FDI Right. This chapter looks at India's trade in the world, the impact of global economic shifts on exports and foreign investment, and how India is strengthening its position in international trade. The survey says there is a challenging global trade environment. Despite all of this, India's external sector has been very resilient. The foreign exchange reserves remain strong, covering 90% of external debt and providing over 10 months of import cover. That means we have enough dollars to pay for 10 months imports. However, FDI inflows have slowed down. The survey lists few reasons for this: rising global protectionism, shifting supply chains, and new trade barriers like the European Union's carbon border adjustment mechanism. Despite these challenges, India's export performance remains stable, with pharmaceuticals, IT services, and engineering goods continuing to perform well. The survey highlights the need for improvement as FDI inflow is slowing down. The survey suggests easing business regulations, reducing trade restrictions, and strengthening investor confidence. With global trade facing uncertainty, India must focus on diversifying its export markets and improving ease of doing business to stay competitive. The title of the fourth chapter is Prices and Inflation Understanding the Dynamics. It covers why inflation is rising or falling, what's affecting food and fuel prices, and how the government and RBI are trying to keep prices stable. The survey highlights that inflationary pressures have decreased. Retail inflation has dropped to 4.9% as food prices stabilize following strong Kharif output. We already mentioned earlier that because of good monsoons, there was a very good Kharif output. This has been one of the major reasons for decreasing inflation. But survey warns about few things that can escalate prices and result in higher inflation. Geopolitical tensions such as Ukraine war and global supply chain disruptions such as Suez Canal can result in higher inflation. The survey emphasizes the need for supply side measures, agricultural productivity improvements, and energy security policies to manage inflation effectively. The name of the fifth chapter is Medium Term Outlook. Deregulation drives growth. This chapter discusses how India plans to grow in the next 5 to 10 years, why business friendly policies and reducing red tape are essential, and how India aims to sustain high growth. The survey says India's long term economic growth is dependent on deregulation, enhanced economic freedom, and structural reforms. The survey projects India to become a $5 trillion economy by financial year 2028 and reach $6.3 trillion by financial year 2030, with an annual nominal GDP growth rate of 10.2% in dollar terms. To sustain high GDP growth, the survey stresses the need for reducing compliance burdens, improving business regulations, and boosting private sector confidence. In this chapter, the survey says there are various challenges to this: geoeconomic fragmentation, shifting global supply chains, etc. We will explain this in detail when we take up this chapter. The title of the sixth chapter is Investment and Infrastructure Keeping It Going. This chapter talks about major government investments in roads, railways, airports, and energy. how public-private partnerships are boosting infrastructure, and why these projects are key to long-term economic growth. According to the survey, infrastructure remains a cornerstone of India's growth. There is a significant progress in capital expenditure, particularly after the general elections. During general elections, because of Model Code of Conduct and other factors, the capital expenditure was relatively lesser, and private sector investment was also lesser because of political uncertainty. But after general elections, capital expenditure has significantly improved. National Infrastructure Pipeline and National Monetization Pipeline programs have been successful. National Monetization Pipeline has successfully raised 3.86 lakh crore rupees by 2023-2024, unlocking value from government owned assets. We will explain this in detail in the concerned chapter. The survey stresses the need for greater private sector involvement, emphasizing public private partnerships, risk sharing mechanisms, and innovative financing solutions. As India aims for Viksit Bharat by 2047, infrastructure spending will need to be scaled up with sustainability and efficiency in focus. The seventh chapter is Industry, all about business reforms. This chapter explains how India's manufacturing sector is evolving, the role of industrial policies like PLI, and why business friendly reforms are needed. The survey underscores the critical role of manufacturing and industrial policies in India's growth trajectory. It notes that geopolitical uncertainties, shifting global trade policies, and aggressive industrial strategies by major economies have affected Indian manufacturing. Survey says, despite all of this, India's production linked incentive scheme has been very successful, especially in the electronics, automobiles, and pharmaceutical sector. The survey provides one notable example about air conditioners. More and more air conditions are being produced in India only because of these PLI incentives. India has a large consumer base for air conditioners. This production linked incentive gave incentives to those manufacturers who produced more ACs in India only. The survey suggests this program should be extended to other sectors also. The survey also calls for R&D investment, innovation, and skill development to ensure India remains globally competitive in manufacturing. And the eighth chapter is about services sector. It has a title Services New Challenges for the Old War Horse. Old war horse here refers to services sector. It is saying the services sector is facing new challenges. It talks about how India's services sector, IT, finance, retail and logistics continues to drive growth while also looking at the impact of global trade shifts and digitalization. According to the survey, the services sector continues to be India's economic backbone, contributing over 60% of GDP and driving employment and exports. The survey highlights that services exports grew by 11.6% in the first 9 months of 2024-2025, bolstered by IT, financial services, and digital commerce. The survey underscores the role of Open Network for Digital Commerce (ONDC) in transforming e-commerce. More on this in the concerned chapter. However, global rising protectionism and supply chain disruptions pose challenges, requiring India to diversify service exports and invest in skills development. The ninth chapter is about agriculture and food management, sector of the future. This chapter discusses how Indian farmers are adapting to climate change, the importance of modernizing food production and storage, and the need for better pricing policies for farmers. According to the survey, the agriculture sector grew at an average of 5% annually from financial year 2017 to financial year 2023, demonstrating strong adaptability despite climate challenges. Kharif production reached a record high, boosting rural incomes and food security. The 10th chapter is Climate and Environment. Adaptation Matters. It focuses on how India is dealing with climate change, the push for green energy and sustainable development, and why balancing growth with environmental protection is crucial. The survey underscores India's climate adaptation strategy is critical for long term sustainability. It also says adaptation expenditure has risen from 3.7% to 5.6% of GDP between 2016 and 2022. India remains committed to low carbon growth despite not getting much global finance. The Lifestyle for Environment Life initiative is playing a transformative role in promoting sustainable consumption and circular economy practices. The survey also highlights India's commitment to net zero emissions by 2070 requires advancements in energy storage, grid infrastructure, and green hydrogen development. The survey highlights global financing mechanisms remain inadequate, and India will have to rely largely on domestic resources for climate action. The 11th chapter has a title Social Sector Extending Reach and Driving Empowerment. This chapter explains how India is improving healthcare, education, and social welfare, making sure that economic benefits reach everyone, especially the underprivileged. It focuses on various initiatives and schemes. It also talks about mental health quotient concept. We will discuss this in detail in the concerned chapter video. The 12th chapter is Employment and Skill Development Existential Priorities. It talks about how India is creating jobs, the importance of skilling the workforce, and how India can take advantage of its young population in a changing job market. The survey notes the demand for skilled workers is growing globally, presenting opportunities for India's young workforce. There is a need for early vocational education, industry academia collaboration, and flexible learning models to prepare the workforce for emerging job markets in AI, automation, and sustainability. The 13th chapter is titled Labor in the AI Era Crisis or Catalyst. This chapter discusses whether AI and automation will take away jobs or create new opportunities, and what India needs to do to prepare its workforce for the future. We will discuss this in detail in future videos. And last chapter is Conclusion Path Ahead for India's Growth. The final chapter sums up India's growth story, the challenges ahead, and what needs to be done to keep the economy strong and future ready. This is a broad overview of economic survey. Don't worry if you have not understood many terms and concepts. In the next videos of this play series, we will take each chapter separately and explain each terms and concepts along with all the schemes and statistics given in the economic survey. Subscribe to our channel Clarity of Concept and join our Telegram channel. Check out our Places in News video series for UPSC Prelims 2025 and Indian Polity video series.